Hey everyone! In this video today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this rainbow plaid friendship bracelet. This is a pattern from Bracelet book. As always, I will leave it in the description box, but instead of using white as my background, I am going to go ahead and use colors that are a little more close to the original pattern colors. So I'm going to be using black with a sort of more non-traditional rainbow. There's no red in it and there's no purple, so I guess it's not technically a rainbow, but it's close. So for this bracelet you are going to need 7 black strings and then 7 rainbow colors. You can do your rainbow colors however you want. Even if they're a little bit different from mine, this pattern should still be pretty easy to follow. As far as measuring goes, I do about 35 to 40 inches. This pattern is a little bit more on the simpler side, so it shouldn't eat up a whole bunch of string, but I will say that you want your colored strands to be a little bit longer than your black ones, as you can kind of see here, just because you're going to use them up a little bit more than your black strings. And then for the tail, I have about 4 inches left over for tail space, and my knot is pretty loose at the top so that I can undo it easily later. So the way you want to organize your strings is to have all of your rainbow colors on the left and then all of your black strands on the right. So really quick, I will put my strands in order. So when you're starting with your rainbow colors, of course, you are going to want your strings to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So when you see this bracelet here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then obviously it doesn't matter what order your black strings go in because they're all the same color. So I'm just gonna kind of leave these alone for now because when I do get there, I'm probably just gonna pick up random strings while going across. So before we begin, I just want to say that plaid bracelets are really interesting because they're really hard to segment knot. I was playing around with some other patterns, so for example, this two-tone plaid, I tried to go by sections, so like start here, then do the middle. And it didn't turn out as well as I hoped it would. It's extremely bumpy, and even with the straight edges technique down here, it just isn't that aesthetically pleasing, I guess. It doesn't look bad or anything. It's just got a lot of bumps. And then I tried to do more of a candy stripe method, and I did it on this one, which looks actually really good. It's really hard to see all of these little bumps here. And then on this pattern specifically, I followed the candy stripe method, and you can see how it's sort of wavy on the left side. Even with the straight edges technique, it's not completely straight on the left side like it is the right. And after realizing all that, my only guess is that it's because of the tension as well as the fact that plaid bracelets have a lot of pulling back and forth on each other. So for example, this is all going towards the right, but when you get into this section, it's pulling both left and right with the strings. So there's nothing wrong with having these little lumpy edges unless you're more of a perfectionist and it personally doesn't look good to you. So I've kind of come to the conclusion that plaid bracelets work really good if you're going by pairs and doing it row by row, but it just takes a lot longer. Whereas the candy stripe method, it's going to be way faster, but you will lose out on the perfectly straight edges. So I guess it's more like a pick your poison type thing. So I'm personally okay with doing the candy stripe method, and that's what I'm going to teach here today. If you want to do pairs and do it row by row, then the pattern down below is going to show you exactly how to do that. So finally, let's get into this tutorial. For our very first 7 rows, we are going to do just a plain candy stripe. So we are going to take our outermost left strand and we are going to do forward knots on all of these strands until we get it to the right side. So I'm not going to do this every row, but you make your 4 shape, go into that loop underneath a base strand, pull that through, and then you're going to do that one more time to make a full forward knot. So do that on all of your strands till we get it to the right. Alright, we have our very first row finished, and it is going to look a little sloppy at first because you are trying to get the strings to lay in the order that you want them to be in. And again, we are going to repeat that whole process with our second color. So take your outermost left strand and do forward knots on all of your strings until you get it to the right. And make sure you do a forward knot over your first color as well. So again, for shape, go into this hole, pull the string through from underneath, and then do it one more time to make a complete forward knot. And then just keep doing that all the way across. Now we have that completed, and I think you get the idea at this point. Take your outermost left strand, do forward knots all the way across until you get it to the right, and keep repeating that with all of your colors until you are met with your very first black string. The batteries in my light were slowly going out, but you can see here we have the start of our plaid bracelet. We made forward knots with all of our colors, and now we are met with all of our black strings. And with a candy stripe, it's typical for your bracelet to start going off a little more diagonally, so in that case I actually like to just turn it so that way it's going in a more of a downward slope. Then it just helps me see how straight my bracelet is. So now we finally begin our plaid section of the bracelet, and if you see on the pattern, we have a little triangle section here, and you can kind of see there's a bit of a pattern with the black strings, and it goes 6, 6, 4, 4, 2, 2, and that is how you can think about it while you are making this bracelet. It can help tell you how many forward knots you need to make with your black string before you start incorporating the plaid part. So we are going to take our outermost left strand, our very first black strand, and we are going to do 6 forward knots. So that is going to be forward knots on all of your black strands. And now that we have that started, I am going to move all of these other black strings off to the side because we're not going to be working with them at all. So what we're going to do is actually turn our working strand into the base strand, and we are going to take our first color and we're going to do a backward knot onto this black string. So backward knot, P shape, go into that hole under the base strand and pull the color through. And then do that one more time. And then for our second color, we are going to do a forward knot onto it. So we're going to bring this black string back up. So we're alternating our black string and our colors. And then for our third color, we want it to show up, so we are going to do a backward knot onto this black string. Pick up our fourth color and we're going to do a forward knot onto it with our black string. Fifth color is going to show through now, so use that color to make a backward knot onto the black. And then we're going to do a forward knot on top of our sixth color with our black string. And then finally, for our seventh color, we're going to do a backward knot onto the black string. And that is our first plaid row done. You can see we have it alternating from color to black. And then for our next black string on the outermost left side, we're going to do 6 forward knots again because we only now have 5 of these left. And because we want to alternate it, we want our black to go next so that it's our first color and then black, as you can see here where we have this sort of checkered pattern. So pick up the black string next to it, do a forward knot, and then the next one, and then 6, our very first color. And with our second color, we want that to show through, since for the last row we did a black color. So we are going to do a backward knot onto our black string. And then we're going to do a forward knot on top of our third color. Then for the fourth color, we are going to do a backward knot onto the black string. Fifth color, we're doing a forward knot on top of it. Sixth color, we are doing a backward knot on top of the black. And then for our seventh color, we are doing a forward knot on top of it. And then, just like a regular candy stripe, you don't want to leave a gap on these last two strings, so go ahead and do a forward knot onto them. And now we are going to do 4 forward knots on our next 4 strings. So in that case, we are only doing forward knots on top of our last 4 black strings. Because you can see here, we did a black over our first color earlier, and we're going to be able to bring that back up when we get to it. Take your strand next to your outermost left strand, do a forward knot on top of it, and then pick up the second one. And then we have our third strand. And then one more forward knot on our last black strand. Pick up our first color, and we're going to do a backward knot onto this black strand. And then pick up our second color and do a forward knot on top of it. And I think at this point you can kind of see the pattern that is going on here. After we do our set of forward knots on our black strings, we're having this alternating pattern of backward knots, forward knots, etc. So if you ever get lost, you can actually tell pretty easily whether or not you need to do a forward knot or a backward knot next, just by seeing your checkered pattern. So if you kind of follow that pattern, you can remember that pretty easily, and then you'll know when to start doing your backward knot with your color. So I'm going to go back to this, and we just did a forward knot on our second color, so for our third color we want to do a backward knot. And then once you get to the rest of these black strands, you just want to go ahead and do a forward knot on top of them with your working strand. And now we are coming back to the left side yet again, and we want to do forward knots on the next 4 of our strings. So you can see that we did a backward knot on top of the black string in our last row. So we want to include that here so that we can go over it and do that checkered pattern. So take your outermost left strand and do forward knots on all 4 of those strands. And then we can start doing our alternating patterns. So we pick up our second color and we do a backward knot onto the black string. then do a forward knot on top of the third color. And keep alternating that on all of these colors, and then we will do forward knots on all 3 of these black strands. Alright, and that is that row completed, and we can go back to our outermost left strand. And this time we are only going to do forward knots on 2 of our strands, which means we are only going to be doing forward knots on our last 2 black strands. So go ahead and do forward knots on your last 2 black strands. And now we can go ahead and start doing that alternating pattern, backward knots, backward, forward, etc. And then when you get to your black strands over here, you just want to do forward knots all the way across. Now we have that row completed, and you will see we have 2 black strings left, and we are going to do 2 forward knots one final time. So we will be doing a forward knot on top of our black string and our first color. And then we are quickly jumping back into our alternating backward and forward knots. So take your second color and do a backward knot on top of the black, forward knot on top of our third color, and then keep alternating that on all of your colors, and then when you get to your black strings, do forward knots on all of those. So for our last row, we are actually going to do a backward knot onto it with our very first color. And then we do a forward knot onto our second color. And I think you get the idea at this point. And now you can see our rainbow is on the left side and all of our black strings are on the right, just like we started with. And that is the whole pattern. You just repeat exactly what we did from the beginning. You do your full candy stripe and then you follow this pattern for the plaid section, and then you'll have your completed bracelet. And you can see that this is a little bit more wonky, so if you're careful, you can kind of pull on the bracelet a little bit to kind of straighten that out. So thank you guys so much for watching this video today. If you want to follow my bracelet book account, it's the same as my YouTube name but without the C at the end. And you can also follow me on Instagram, where I like to post pictures of bracelets and all that fun stuff, and it is the exact same as my YouTube name with the C and everything. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video today, and I will see you in the next one.